and welcome back to Adapulse. The channel brings you all the news and all the proposals in and around the Cardano ecosystem. And we're coming back to Minswap for part 2, which is the article by LIBERLION. So we're talking about the DEX building multiple approaches to liquidity pools. And as I said, this is part 2. And so I'm Josh from ATM, and let's dig straight back into this. So, in the previous episode, we discussed the general topics of Minswap DEX. So, in this episode, we're going to explain the FISO model and the Laminar protocol of Minswap DEX. So, let's talk about the FISO model for a second. Now, the ISO, ISO stands for Initial Stakepool Offering model, consists of funding a development or project by creating a stake pool, and they set a very high variable margin, sometimes even 100%. And what the developers do, they collect the block rewards based on that margin in ADA and deliver the project tokens to their delegators in return. So this was invented by SundaeSwap in April 21, and they did implement it with delay quite recently, but you've probably heard of MELD, who they already did quite well with that. So Minswap developed an innovation on that model called Fair Initial Stakepool Offering, so FISO. And it allows projects to raise funds in a decentralized way with broad community participation and small SPOs to gain the delegation. So the advantages of this model are several. So it allows SPOs to directly benefit from growth of DeFi and other projects. Now this further decentralizes Cardano's network and provides an opportunity for SPOs, especially small ones, to build trust and reputation as a FISO partner. Now, the selection was by lottery of registrants, and it took place in July 21. The criteria for an SPO to participate were you had to be a single pool operator, pool size of 100k to 2 million, the fixed cost had to be 340, pledge minimum 20k ADA, and it had to be no more than 5%. You also, it's a 5% variable, but you also had to have produced a block in the past. You couldn't just be straight off the brand new pool. The FISO had a duration of 20 epochs. The token distribution to delegators was set based on the number of epochs that you delegated, and earned rewards are claimable after the last epoch of the FISO. Since Minswap ran a FISO at 0%, the participants who delegated to FISO pools received the full block reward, so just like staking in a normal pool. And additionally, they're receiving the distribution of the Minswap tokens. So a FISO at 0% means that Minswap did not receive any ADA rewards at all, since the purpose was not to raise funds but to distribute tokens to the community and incentivize Min token recipients to generate liquidity in the DEX when it trades. The FISO collected over 200 million delegated ADA. So over 14,000 delegators received from the token distribution, and that was across 25 pools over 3 months, minting 2,400 blocks in the process. So now the FISO is ending. What's next? So take a look at this schedule for claiming your tokens. So January the 10th, 2022, the Min tokens can be claimed on the mainnet. February the 24th to March 11th, 2022, all FISO participants with unclaimed Mint tokens may claim both Mint and Min in a single transaction. And so remember, March the 11th is the last day to claim Min and Mint tokens. So quarter 2 of this year, currently expected, is Yield Farm's launch. And any unclaimed tokens will be returned to the Treasury. And check out this graphic to explain how to convert your Mint tokens. So now let's talk about Laminar, the Minswap DEX protocol. Now, the potential cost, security, and scalability advantages of Cardano's EUTXO model and Haskell-based smart contracts are exceptional. Some of DeFi's ideas, such as constant product pricing's automated moneymaker, the AMM, are only possible in accounting-style smart contracts. That's why the Minswap team proposes this new way to execute accounting-style smart contracts multiple times in a block without sacrificing decentralization. So where did Laminar get its name from? Well, Latin, lamina, or slice, layer, to mean a smooth, parallel flow of liquidity. Now, Laminar is a batching protocol design that has some key features about it. So it can scale indefinitely as the transaction limit allows without any parameter updates. It's upgradable and composable without hard fork or liquidity migration. Works on a layer 1 EUTXO chains. Designed to be MEV resistant, it's decentralized and DDoS resistant and provides secondary revenue for SPOs. Also requires no changes to the underlying accounting style smart contract. So in this graph, we can see the processing differences. So each time a user needs to interact with a smart contract in the accounting model, which is represented as a UTXO script, he or she must block that contract by one block. So that means if loads of users want to interact with a UTXO smart contract, only one can succeed. Batch processing means that all user interactions with the UTXO smart contract are combined into a single transaction. Now, Laminar is based on a simple observation. Now, an accounting model UTXO that is spent n times in n blocks will have the same result as if it's spent n times in one block. So with Laminar's approach, the transaction fee for a batch will be divided among all users participating in that batch. At startup, there probably won't be many requests per block. So therefore, profitable batches result in higher user fees and low user fees result in unprofitable batches. So this makes the startup really difficult. Now, the solution is similar to one that will apply to early liquidity provision, and that is to additionally incentivize early batches with governance tokens. So it's a sort of lotting with token mining. Now, the governance tokens will keep the batch flow going until the batch processing is sustainable with batch requests fees alone. So batch requests we're going to call BR. Now, the requirement to become a batch processor is actually really easy. All you need to do is run a full node and the batch processing bot. They prevent Sybil attacks by requiring each batcher to contribute a certain amount of ADA. The batching bot and documentation are open source from Minswap. Surely SPOs are likely to be the first batch processors, as they are with like WMT and Earth nodes. Now, the batcher rate doesn't need to follow a bidding system. So Laminar is flexible enough to have different incentive schemes for different use cases so they can align batcher interests with the user interests. An effective way to avoid malicious requests is to have each batch request contain a time token. Now, this is the way to request BRs in a transaction. Each BR will only be validated if all BRs are of the same type and are ordered by this time token. Now, I mentioned before, Laminar is DDoS resistant. So an attacker will face batch competition from all other batch processors and therefore has little chance of success. So even if an attack does succeed, it would only delay the request fulfillment by one block before all other competing batch processors fulfill it. Now, the interesting thing about Laminar is that the incentive mechanism isn't hard-coded into the protocol. So that means it can be more easily updated and or composed. Now, no solution is foolproof for every challenge. So the first challenge is that in the case of volatile high-volume trades, a market order can be lost or delayed due to a lot limit or cancelled due to high slippage. Although, in this case, users only have to pay a small amount of ADA to upgrade or withdraw BR. The second is to bundle many state transitions of the base contract into a single transaction. Since the base contract is independent of the batch processing protocol, its state transition cannot be affected by the batch order. So this results in some batches taking longer than 2 blocks to finish. Now, the third is that since a batch transaction has no way of knowing the total number of BRs, a batch processor may deliberately skip some orders. But on that point, to extract value from this, the cost will outweigh the gains as the batch processing network grows. The latter is that multiple UTXOs of scripts are required to be executed in one transaction, and there is a transaction limit. Off-chain sequencer, the short-term solution. Now, a sequencer requires all transactions related to a liquidity pool to be sent through a back-end. Because they're all sent through a centralized point, UTXOs can be chained in the same block since it's known which UTXO will be the current block prior to confirmation. Now, a sequencer can operate on many pairs, but must be dedicated to specific token pairs in the DEX. To reduce centralization and single point of failure, the sequencer host will be federated with other projects whose tokens are traded on Minswap. The host addresses of the federated sequencer will be updated in the user interface. Splitting liquidity into multiple UTXOs. Why not? Now, one of the most obvious solutions to avoid UTXO concentration is to split the smart contract into multiple UTXOs, along with their liquidity. Now, two popular market-making models that work with this approach are the order book and the concentrated liquidity AMM. Now, current market-making models don't meet the solution requirements for issuing new tokens for a constant product AMM. So the team at Minswap believe that splitting the liquidity is the natural approach to solving the concurrency challenge in an EUTXO chain. Now, this approach is also constrained by transaction limits. So let's talk about those. To maintain a decentralized blockchain, it's crucial to impose some limits. Currently, there are three important limits on an Alonzo transaction. So that's your transaction size, the memory size, and the computational size. Now, these limits are not critical to design of the protocol. They're just parameters to be modified, which can be voted on as part of governance. Now, that's the end of part 2 of the Minswap article. Remember, the full article can be found on the Adapulse website, and I'll be putting the link below, as well as, again, the link to the Minswap website. And if you want to support our channel, you can by liking, sharing, and subscribing. And we do want to hear your feedback too. But you can further support the channel by delegating your ADA to Swag, Zod, or ATM. Now, I'm Josh from ATM, and that's all for now, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.